Hi everyone, for my final presentation, I am going to talk about TikTok's legal battle over data privacy and national security. So what this basically means is that TikTok is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, and it is coming across as, there's concerns of invasion of user privacy, transparency, the ethical advertising and consumer protection, and also the geopolitical influence. So those are kind of the topics that we will be covering and discussing in this project, in this video. So first, with the data privacy and national security, is that there's a crossroads of the ethics, technology, and global politics with the risk of TikTok's ownership of the Chinese company ByteDance potentially sharing the user data that they're collecting and it being accessible to the Chinese government. And then this is a concern because it's sensitive data, and also people aren't necessarily sure how the data is being collected, and it is then being shared with all types of people, including vulnerability minors. And this is a big deal because it can come across as manipulation, and it's also just not safe or ethical. In response to this, the US lawmakers have introduced legislation that either seeks an outright ban or they want to force ByteDance to sell to an American company. These actions, though, have reflected the difficult of balancing between safeguarding national security and upholding consumer and corporate rights. Another concern is the ethical advertising is kind of another difficult area because the targeted advertising is based on sensitive data that can be used as honestly kind of manipulation because users are not fully informed or given control over how their data is used. In terms of the consumer protection, regulators continue to scrutinize whether TikTok is doing enough to shield its users, or that could be minors, from potential misuse of information. A good example of this is like political campaigns. They are just unable to regulate what is actually factual or not, and this can be concerning. The reason that could be concerning is because of propaganda. The privacy concerns are kind of the heart of the TikTok's legal and ethical crisis because people don't know how TikTok and the platform as a whole is collecting the data, how the data is used, and who has access to it. And right now, because the company is owned by a Chinese company, that it's just like concerning because of the use of Chinese national intelligence laws, which is different than what we have. And theoretically, companies to hand over the data to the government makes user privacy information misused or also misused by foreign power. The reason that this is concerning specifically to the younger audience is that the younger audience are not necessarily understanding or mature enough to understand how the information that they are putting out into the internet is being used. So the data that TikTok is collecting, we don't know where it's going, how it's being used, how it's used to track our behaviors, the browsing history, personal information. Like, we just do not know where that information is, and that is concerning for the younger audience. A variety of different countries are seeking to ban the app. It is not just including the United States. And so with this, it creates a potential threat to TikTok, but also this move could ripple effect across various countries. And a lot of countries right now are watching how the United States is handling this situation, and the TikTok's privacy practices, if not addressed transparently, could escalate from a regulatory challenge into a full-blown geopolitical and corporate crisis, undermining public trust, sparking international tensions, and also the corporate crisis, and also forcing the company to radically restructure its operations to remain viable to the global stage. So a potential solution for all of this would be, as a communication leader on the corporate team or the PR team for TikTok, is they need to prioritize rebuilding the trust with radical transparency, ethical decision making, and proactive engagement with both the users and the stakeholders. So the foundation of the ethical and effective crisis management in this case must begin with acknowledging the concerns rather than denying or downplaying it, and then taking immediate visible steps to address them. The first thing on how to address this would to post a global campaign or a global, broadcast how TikTok is utilizing the data, how it's being collected, the browser history, what information is being collected by TikTok, the app, and what is being shared, who has access to that information. Just being transparent of the safety of the app and everyone's personal data. Another solution is to separate TikTok's operations and data storage from ByteDance through the establishment of an independent Western-based data collected in regions such as like North America or Europe. And so this way it would be a structural reform that is not necessarily a rebrand, but it would physically and legally distance TikTok from potential foreign government influence, addressing the core fears of driving geopolitical backlash. Another suggestion on how to fix some of the concerns would also be to have like age-based marketing and advertisement, such as like if you're collecting data and you know someone is a minor, to then have the limited targeted advertising to like a labeled paid content or meaningful control over the types of content ads that the younger audience is exposed to. This would also mean having like a dedicated ethics and trust division in the company that is responsible for implementing and monitoring all ethical decision making, and also having a strong leadership team that supports this. Managing the entire crisis ethically means that the focus is on long-term credibility over short-term goals. It also means shifting from secrecy to transparency, and from compliance under pressure to proactive responsibility. And this also is helping with the integrity and openness, which can recover TikTok from the crisis but emerge as leaders in the intersection of privacy, politics, and digital innovation. In conclusion, the path of TikTok, and for any global digital platform, it must be rooted in trust, clarity, transparency, and a genuine commitment to ethical practices, and by confronting these challenges head on and leading with integrity.